Harry says, I've known neither. Agatha says, the autumn came too soon, not soon enough. The rain and wind had not shaken your father. Awake yet, I found him thinking how to get rid of your mother. What simple plots. He was not suited to the role of murderer. In what way did he wish to murder her? Harry asked. Agatha said, Oh, a dozen foolish ways. Each one abandoned for something more ingenious. You were due in 3 months' time. You would not have been born in that event. I stopped him. I can take no credit for a little common sense. He would have bungled it. I did not want to kill you. You to be killed. What were you then? Only a thing called life. Something that should have been mine, as I felt then. Most people would not have felt that compunction if they felt no other, but I wanted you. If that had happened, I knew I should have carried death in life, death through lifetime, death in my womb. I felt that you were in some way mine, and that in any case, I should have no other child, Harry says. And have me? That is the way things happen. Everything is true in a different sense, a sense that would have seemed meaningless before. Everything tends towards reconciliation. As the stone falls, as the tree falls, and in the end, that is the completion, which at the beginning would have seemed the ruin. Perhaps my life has only been a dream, dreamt through me by the minds of others. Perhaps I only dream. I pushed her, Agatha says. So I had supposed. What of it? What we have written is not a story of detection, of crimes and punishment, but of sin and expiation. It is possible that you have not known what sin you shall expiate. Our whose are why. Well, you can't really pay for the sins of another, but it is certain that the knowledge of it must precede expiation. It is possible that sin may strain and struggle in its dark instinctive birth to come to consciousness and so find expurgation. It is possible you are the consciousness of your unhappy family. Its bird sent flying through the purgatorial flame. Indeed, it is possible. You may learn hereafter, moving alone through flames of ice, chosen to resolve the enchantment under which we suffer. Harry says, Look, I do not know why. I feel happy for a moment, as if I had come home. It is quite irrational, but now I feel quite happy, as if happiness did not consist in getting what one wanted, or in getting rid of what one can't be got rid of, but in a different vision. This is like an end. Again, this is and a beginning, Harry, my dear. I feel very tired, as only the old feel. The young feel tired at the end of an action, the old at the beginning. It is as if I had been living all these years upon my capital, instead of earning my spiritual income daily, and I am old to start again to make my living. Yeah, don't delay a spiritual discipline. Harry says, But you were not unhappy just now. Agatha says, What does the word mean? There's relief from a burden that I carried. and exhaustion at the moment of relief. The burden's yours, now, yours. The burden of all the family, and I am a little frightened, Harry says. You frightened? I can hardly imagine it. I wish I had known. That was impossible. I only now begin to have some understanding of you and of all of us. Family affection was a kind of formal obligation, a duty only noticed by its neglect. One had that part to play. After such training, I could endure these 10 years, playing a part that had been imposed upon me, and I returned to find another one made ready. The book laid out, lines underscored, and the costume ready to be put on. But it is very odd. When other people seemed so strong, their apparent strength stifled my decision. Now I see. I might even become fonder of my mother, more compassionate, at least by understanding. But she would not like that. Now I see. I have been wounded in a war of phantoms, not by human beings. They have no power than I. The things I thought were real are shadows, and the real are what I thought were private shadows. Oh, that awful privacy of the insane mind. Now I can live in public. Liberty is a different kind of pain from prison, Agatha says. I only looked through the little door when the sun was shining on the rose garden, and heard in the distance tiny voices, and then a black raven flew over, and then I was only my own feet walking away down a concrete corridor in a dead air, only feet walking, and sharp heel scraping over and under, echo and noise of feet. I was only the feet, and I, seeing the feet, the unwinking eye, fixing the movement, over and under, Harry says, in and out, in an endless drift, of shrieking forms in a circular desert, weaving with contagion of putrescent embraces, on dissolving bone, in and out, the movement, until the chain broke, and I was left under the single eye above the desert, Agatha says, up and down through the stone passages of an immense and empty hospital, pervaded by a smell of disinfectant, looking straight ahead, passing barred windows, up and down until the chain breaks. Harry says, to and fro, dragging my feet, among inner shadows in the smoky wilderness, trying to avoid the clasping branches and the giant lizard, to and fro, until the chain breaks. The chain breaks, and the wheel stops, and the noise of machinery, and the desert is cleared, under the judicial sun of the final eye, and the awful evacuation cleanses. I was not there, you were not there, only our phantasms. And what did not happen is as true as what did happen. Oh, my dear, and you walked through the little door, and I ran to meet you in the rose garden, Agatha says. This is the next moment. This is the beginning. We do not pass twice through the same door, or return to the door through which we did not pass. I have seen the first stage. Relief from what happened is also relief from that unfulfilled craving. Flattered in sleep and deceived in waking, you have a long journey. Harry says, "Not yet, not yet. This is the first time that I have been free from the ring of ghosts with joined hands from the pursuers and come into a quiet place. Why is it so quiet? Do you feel a kind of stirring underneath the air? Do you? Don't you? A communication, a scent, direct to the brain, but not just as before, not quite like, not the same. The Eumenides appear." And Harry continues, "And this time you cannot think that I am surprised to see you, and you shall not think that I am afraid to see you. This time you are real. This time you were outside me, and just endurable. I know that you are ready to leave Wishwood, and I am going with you. You followed me here, where I thought I should escape you. No, you were already here before I arrived. Now I see at last that I am following you, and I know that there can be only one itinerary and one destination. Let us lose no time. I will follow." The curtain closes, and Agatha goes to the window in a somnambular fashion and opens the curtains, disclosing the empty embrasure. She steps into the place where the Eumenides had occupied. Agatha says, "A curse comes to being as a child is formed. In both, the incredible becomes the actual, without our intention. Knowing what is intended, a curse is like a child formed in a moment of unconsciousness, in an accidental bed, or under an elder tree, according to the phase of the determined moon. A curse is like a child formed to grow to maturity. Accident is design, and design is accident. In a cloud of unknowing, O my child, my curse, you shall be fulfilled. The knot shall be unknotted, and the crooked made straight." She moves back into the room. "What have I been saying? I think I was saying that you have a long journey. You have nothing to stay for. Think of it as like a children's treasure hunt. Here you have found a clue hidden in the obvious place. Delay, and it is lost. Love compels cruelty. There are those who do not understand love. What you have wished to know, what you have learned, mean the end of a relation. Make it impossible. You did not intend this. I did not intend it. No one intended. But you must go," Harry says. "Shall we ever meet again?" Agatha says. "Shall we ever meet again? And who will meet again? Meeting is for strangers. Meeting is for those who do not know each other," Harry says. "I know that I have made a decision in a moment of clarity, and now I feel dull again. I only know that I made a decision, which your words echo. I am still befouled, but I know there's only one way out of defilement, which leads in the end to reconciliation, and I know that I must go." Agatha says, "You must go," and Amy enters and says, What are you saying to Harry? He has only arrived, and you tell him to go? Agatha says, he shall go. Amy says, he shall go? And who are you to say he shall go? I think I know well enough why you wish him to go. Agatha says, I wish nothing. I only say what I know must happen. Amy says, you only say what you intended to happen. Harry says, oh, Mother, this is not to do with Agatha any more than with the rest of you. My advice has come from quite a different quarter, but I cannot explain that to you now, only to be sure that I know what I am doing and what I must do, and that it is the best thing for everybody. But at present, I cannot explain it to anyone. I do not know the words in which to explain it. This is what makes it harder. You must just believe me until I come again. Amy says, but why are you going? Harry says, I can only speak, and you cannot hear me. I can only speak so you may not think I conceal an explanation. And I tell you that I would have liked to explain. Amy says, why should Agatha know, and I not be allowed to? I do not know whether Agatha knows, or how much she knows. Any knowledge she may have, it was not I who told her. All this year, this last year, I have been in flight, but always in ignorance of invisible pursuers. Now I know that all my life has been in flight, and phantoms fed upon me while I fled. Well, because they were given power like that. Now I know that the last apparent refuge, the safe shelter, that is where one meets them. That is the way of specters. Amy says, there's no one here, no one but your family. Harry says, and now I know that my business is not to run away, but to pursue, not to avoid being found, but to seek. I would not have chosen this way, had there been any other. It is at once the hardest thing, and the only thing possible. Now they will lead me. I shall be safe with them. I am not safe here, Amy says. So you will run away? Agatha says, in a world of fugitives, the person taking the opposite direction will appear to run away. Amy says, I was speaking to Harry. Harry says, it is very hard when one has just recovered sanity and not yet assured its possession. That is, when one begins to seem the maddest to other people. It's hard for you too, Mother. It's indeed harder not to understand, Amy says. Where are you going? Harry says, I shall have to learn. That is still unsettled. I have not yet had the precise directions. Where does one go from a world of insanity, somewhere on the other side of despair, to the worship in the desert, the thirst and deprivation, a stony sanctuary and primitive altar, the heat of the sun and the icy vigil, a care of our lives of humble people, the lesson of ignorance, of incurable diseases. Such things are possible. It is love and terror of what waits and wants me, and will not let me fall. Let the cricket chirp. John shall be the master. All I have is his. No harm can come to him. What would destroy me will be the life for John. I am responsible for him. Why I have this election, I do not understand. It must have been preparing always, and I see it was what I always wanted. Strength demanded. That seems too much. Is just strength enough given. I must follow the bright angels. Now we're all given these situations we need to make the right decisions of belief in action, right? But contrary to popular belief, it turns out that deserts and bare terrains are more prone towards polytheism than places full of a bunch of trees and wet and all that sort of stuff, which tend towards monotheism more, which is as much as people talk about desert religions or some nonsense like that doesn't really pan out. Well, that's why there's a surprise, but again, people aren't burdened beyond what they... Scene 3. Amy says, I was a fool to ask you again to Wishwood, but I thought 35 years is long, and death is an end, and I thought that time might have made a change in Agatha. It has made enough in me. 35 years ago, you took my husband from me. Now you take my son, Agatha says. What did I take? Nothing that you ever had. What did I get? 30 years of solitude. Alone, among women, in a women's college. Trying not to dislike women. 30 years in which to think. Do you suppose that I wanted to return to Wishwood? Amy says. The more rapacious to take what I never had. The more unpardonable to taunt me with not having it. Had you taken what I had, you would have left me at least a memory, a something to live upon. You know what you took? Everything except the walls, the furniture, the acres, leaving nothing but what I could breed for myself, what I could plant here. 7 years I kept him, for the sake of the future, a discontented ghost in his own house. What of the humiliation of the chilly pretenses in the silent bedroom, forcing sons upon an unwilling father? Dare you think what that does to one? Try to think of it. I would have sons if I could not have a husband. Then I let him go. I abase myself. Did I show any weakness, any self-pity? I forced myself to the purposes of Wishwood. I even asked you back for visits after he was gone, so that there might be no ugly rumors. You thought I did not know? You may be close, but I always saw through him. And now it is my son, Agatha says. I know one thing, Amy, that you have never changed, and perhaps I have not. I thought that I had until this evening, but at least I wanted to. Now I must begin. There is nothing more difficult, but you are just the same, just as voracious for what you cannot have, because you repel it, Amy says. I prepared the situation for us to be reconciled because of Harry, because of his mistakes, because of his unhappiness, because of the misery that he has left behind him, because of the waste I wanted to obliterate, his past life, and I have nothing except to remind him of the years when he had been a happy boy at Wishwood. For his future success, Agatha says, success is relative. It is what we can make of the mess we've made of things. It is what he can make, not what you would make for him. Success is one thing, and what you would make for him is another. I call it failure. Your fury for possession is only the stronger for all these years of abstinence. 35 years ago, you took my husband from me, and now you take my son. Agatha says, why should we quarrel for what neither can have, if neither has ever had a husband or a son? We have no ground for argument, Amy says. who set you up to judge? What, if you please, gives you the power to know what is best for Harry? What gave you this influence to persuade him to abandon his duty, his family, and his happiness? Who has planned his good? Is it you or I? 35 years designing his life, 8 years watching without him at Wishwood, years of bitterness and disappointment. What share had you in this? What have you given? And now at the moment of success against failure, when I felt assured of his settlement and happiness, you who took my husband, now you take my son. You take him from Wishwood. You take him from me. You take him. And Mary enters. Excuse me, Cousin Amy. I have just seen Denman. She came to tell me that Harry is leaving. Downing told her. He has got the car out. What is the matter? Amy says. That woman there. She has persuaded him. I do not know how. I have been always trying to make myself believe that he was not such a weakling as his father in the hands of any unscrupulous woman. I have no influence over him. You can try, but you will not succeed. She has some spell that works from generation to generation. Mary says, Is Harry really going? Agatha says, He is going. But that is not my spell. It is none of my doing. I've only watched and waited. In this world, it is inexplicable. The resolution is in another, Mary says. Oh, but it is the danger comes from another. Can you not stop him, Cousin Agatha? Stop him? You do not know what I have seen and what I know. He is in great danger, I know that. Don't ask me. You would not believe me, but I tell you I know. You must keep him here. You must not let him leave. I do not know what must be done, what can be done, even here but elsewhere. Everywhere he is in danger. I will stay or I will go, whichever is better. I do not care what happens to me, but Harry must go, Cousin Agatha. Here the danger, here the death, here not elsewhere. Elsewhere, no doubt, is agony, renunciation, but birth and life. Harry has crossed the frontier, beyond which safety and danger have different meaning, and he cannot return. That is his privilege. For those who live in this world only, do you think that I would take the responsibility of tempting them over the border? No one could. No one who knows. No one who has the least suspicion of what's to be found there. But Harry has been led across the frontier. He must follow. For him, the death is now only on this side. For him, danger and safety have another meaning. They have made this clear, and I, who have seen them, must believe them. Mary says, Oh, so you have seen them too? Agatha says, We must all go, each in his own direction. You and I and Harry, you and I, my dear, may very likely meet again in our wanderings in the neutral territory between two worlds, Mary says. Then you will help me. You remember what I said to you this evening. I know that I was right. You made me wait for this. Only for this. I suppose I did not really mean it then, but I mean it now. Of course, it was much too late then for anything to come for me. I should have known it. It was all over, I believe, before it began, but I deceived myself. It takes so many years to learn that one is dead. So you must help me. I will go, but I suppose it is much too late. Now try to get a fellowship, Amy says to Mary. I guess to everybody. So you will all leave me. An old woman alone in a damned house. I will let the walls crumble. Why should I worry? To keep the tiles on the roof, combat the endless weather, resist the wind, fight with increasing taxes. and unpaid rents and tithes, nourish investments with wakeful nights and patient calculations. With the solicitor, the broker agent, why should I? It is no concern of the body in the tomb to bother about the upkeep. Let the wind and rain do that. Yeah, even when people are wealthy, they certainly have to keep doing some stuff, right? Or at least figuring out how to get others to do it. While Amy was speaking, Harry entered and dressed for departure. Harry says, "But Mother, you will always have Arthur and John to worry about. Not that John is any worry. The destined and the perfect master of Wishwood, the satisfactory son. And as for me, I am the last you need to worry about. I have my course to pursue, and I am safe from normal dangers if I pursue it. I cannot account for this, but it is so, Mother, until I come again." Amy says, "If you go now, I shall never see you again." And Violet, Gerald, and Charles have entered in the meantime. Charles says, "Where is Harry going?" "What is the matter?" Amy says, "Ask Agatha." Gerald says, "Why? What's the matter? Where is he going?" Amy says, "Ask Agatha." Violet says, "I cannot understand at all. Why is he leaving?" Amy says, "Ask Agatha." Violet says, "Really, it sometimes seems to me that I am the only sane person in this house. Your behavior all seems to me quite unaccountable. What has happened, Amy?" Amy says, "Harry is going away to become a missionary." Harry says, "But..." And Charles says, "A missionary? That's never happened in our family. And why in such a hurry? Before you make up your mind." Violet says, "You really can't think of living in a tropical climate." Oh, well, like the people in the tropical climates don't know about Christianity? Really? Gerald says, "There's nothing wrong with the tropical climate if you have to go for some sort of training. The medical knowledge is the first thing. I've met with missionaries often enough, some of them very decent fellows. Of a line profession, they're sometimes very useful. Knowing the natives, though occasionally troublesome, you'll have to learn the language and several dialects. It means a lot of preparation."